Sick and tired of your love-hate relationship with wine?
Welcome to the Feel It Alcohol-Free podcast. Hi, I'm Coach Ruby Williams.
And I'm Coach Susan Larkin.
We're two former wine lovers turned alcohol freedom coaches, exposing the lies about alcohol.
And giving you, our listeners, the tools to break free so you can feel lit.
And when you're lit, you'll feel healthier, freer, and more in control of your life.
So relax, kick back, and get ready to feel lit alcohol-free. Grab our fun bingo card with 21 Feel Lit activities shared on the podcast.
This is a fun way to get motivated to try some new practices in your daily life. Hello, and welcome back to the Feel It Alcohol-Free podcast. Susan and I are so excited to talk about this, even though it's a little more serious of a topic. I mean, our podcast name is Feel Lit, and we drink a lot of times to numb emotions that we want to avoid or that make us feel uncomfortable. So we don't have a specific question today, but what we hear all the time from clients and people we know, and they say this thing like, I drink because I'm lonely. And I want you to know that this is so common and you're not alone. It happened to me. And oftentimes loneliness can come from an event, right? Like empty nest, where your kids go off to college, you start to feel alone, or you go through a divorce. That happened to me too. Or maybe a death of a spouse. I mean, this comes up a lot with our clients. We just hear this a lot, the loneliness. So we're going to dive into being lonely, which is also one of the HALT, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and I add bored. But we just really wanted to address this topic because it's so common and you're just not alone. So we like to dive into our stories. Mine, I would say, is mostly around empty nest. I was definitely drinking a lot, but when my son went away to college, actually, oh my gosh, I just remembered. I experienced empty nest before. Okay, so what happened was I had custody of my son since he was 1. And when he was going to go to high school, so 9th grade, he decided he wanted to live with his dad. Oh
That's
my
huge.
gosh. It felt like a punch in the gut. I mean, I remember when he told me and I said, I'm going to go take a shower. And I just sobbed in the shower. And I remember it felt like my life was over. Like, but I'm a mom. What is my life? It felt like it just felt horrible. And I remember I couldn't stop crying, so that I went to a therapist because I would just start busting out crying like all the time. I was trying not to in front of him. In fact, I don't think I did. He didn't know I was like crying all the time. And I was able to move through it, but it was such a hard thing because my whole identity, like he making lunches, doing the homework, he had sports event, I would go to all of his sporting events. And it was such a big part of my life that I ended up drinking a lot more. And then it was around the same time that I actually had my weight loss surgery. So I got thinner and I was looking better. I had more like confidence on the outside. And it was easy to go to bars. I don't know if you know this about me, Susan, but that year that my son went to...
I don't. This is like...
I know, all new stuff. My son went to his father's in his 9th grade of high school. And I only got to see him every other weekend. It was just a completely different life. I had every night free except for every other weekend, and I started there was 2 or 3 different bars within walking distance from my house, and I would go down there and order drinks and then walk home. And I remember thinking this was a way that to relieve the loneliness, but it was all fake. Because do you want to know, when I remember sitting at a bar stool, this is like one example, and telling this woman that was just sitting next to me my whole life story, and like getting weepy and then thinking like the next day, it was not a connection. I don't even know her name, who she was. Like, it's not a true friend.
Right.
But I just needed connection. I just needed, like, I felt so lonely and lost. And I think this happens with empty nesting, divorce, loss of a spouse. Then I experienced empty nesting again when my son went to college. So he came back for sophomore year and he lived with me again, but then he went to college. And actually, because I had experienced that when he went to ninth grade, it was so much easier. But at that point, my drinking had increased so much that it just gave me like free reign. Like no one's there to watch, right? Like I could drink. I felt like, oh, I'm home alone. Nobody's going to even notice. I can drink as much, or I just kept drinking. But it made me feel more lonely because I couldn't, and I decided not to ever answer the phone, text, go on social media, and nothing once I started drinking, because there was too many times where I was like, I don't know what I said on the phone. I don't know what I said on text, or you would read the text the next day, or what the heck was I posting? And I had all these rules. You cannot go on Amazon. What did I buy? Like So I was staying home alone, drinking and not going out. And I remember like even making plans with friends and saying like, okay, sure, I'll go out with you on Friday. We'll go have dinner or whatever. And then I would start drinking right after work and I'd have to cancel. So it made my world smaller and smaller because I kept choosing to drink alone more than even connecting with others. And that's where this happens for many of us.
Yes.
So that I haven't shared that story yet. So yeah. Anyway, what's your story, Susan, around like loneliness or
Well, that's so interesting though that you hadn't shared that, and that seems like a really significant accelerator event for you in your life, because you've talked about the weight loss surgery before, but this also, and we know this. I hear these stories from women all the time. It's divorce and now my kids are going every other weekend to their dads. And now I don't know what else to do on the weekends or, so back to, the statement you said at the beginning, you are not alone. If you're thinking that you are the only person this is happening to, you are not. Like this is a huge accelerator event and repercussion from something like a divorce or empty nest or loss of a spouse. All of a sudden, your life was, even if you were older, and your kids had already left, the house and have their own kids and et cetera, but your spouse dies, then all of a sudden you're home alone every night and you're used to having cooking for your spouse or having these together times, and just how much easier it is to just sit at home and drink than it is to get out there, not that you need to get out there and date or anything. I'm not even saying that. It's just, I don't have that experience exactly. We've always had kids living here. Like when my kids went off to college and like one of my stepdaughters moved back in. So I'm not especially lonely yet, but I do see how drinking isolated me and kept me from some social events, because I would rather stay, like you said, I'd rather stay home and drink alone than maybe go out where maybe I had to, regulate my drinking more, or I was always just thinking like, am I drinking too much? Is that bottle going to be enough for the four of us? Just those thoughts, those drinking thoughts too, are also interrupting me from having true connection with people. And I really see a difference now in socializing alcohol free, that I just don't have that barrier. I'm just so fully, authentically there with people because my brain isn't distracted by alcohol, basically. So, and it's totally understandable because you're seeking relief, you're seeking comfort if you're upset, like you say, you're crying all, every day. And it doesn't feel good to go through these life transitions when they happen. But the great thing is what I see in people's lives is when they become alcohol free and they become more their authentic self, and then start exploring some of these things. And this is part of the Nourish curriculum that I've learned with Jolene Park, is some of the things that help us in our lifestyle, alcohol-free lifestyle, and to address the physiology are creativity. And so a lot of times I work with clients and I'm like, well, what did you enjoy doing as a kid? Like playing, and one of the things I started, as you know, is pickleball, right? And recently our little pickleball friends invited us to go to the local brewery, and there was a band there, and I was just so much more comfortable not drinking. It's so crazy. They had alcohol-free beer, and the band was awesome. It was just all this 80s music, and I just felt it was just so fun, and so a lot of times though people think, oh, well, how could you go to a brewery if you're alcohol free and enjoy that, but it was so enjoyable. I just had my alcohol free beer, or if they didn't have alcohol free beer, I would have just had water or whatever. And I'm just there to enjoy the company and the new pickleball friends and the band, So
Yeah. I definitely, it's definitely a journey of self-discovery, and then I like to say this too, like when you let go of some of the things you were doing when you were drinking, or some of even your drinking friends, you make room for some new experiences. I mean, I was definitely escaping the feeling of loneliness and emptiness. Really what empty nest is really what it was like, by drinking. Like it was a way to escape, numb those feelings. But the thing is, and I've shared this before, then I'd have a big pity party and I'd start crying anyway. It was the weirdest thing. I would be like watching sad movies, crying, big pile of like Kleenex from crying so much. And so I was definitely lonely. Like it wasn't my friend. Alcohol was not my friend, although I thought it was. I thought it was what was comforting me, making me feel less lonely. So truly, I want you to know you're not alone in this. You're not alone. You're not alone in this. You're really not. It happens to, I would say, so many people that are drinking, that you eventually, like, you do less, it isolates you, you choose to end up drinking alone. But the opposite happens. So yeah, I want to talk about, like, I recently read the book Let Them by Mel Robbins. I love it. I thought it was great. It reminded me of the Serenity Prayer. So, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change is like, let them. And then the courage to change the things that I can is the let me part. And then the wisdom to know the difference is just getting, like, embracing your true self. And so as you get alcohol free, you can just start to create opportunities for connection. What Mel says in her book is that to create a really good friendship, like a bestie, a BFF, it takes something like 200 hours. Okay. And here's what's interesting is when you're younger, so say you're in school, high school, or even college, you can get those 200 hours really quickly. Mm-hmm. People are, you're going to school. Everybody has the same schedule. You have time usually off after school. You're in a sport or a club, and you can spend time with them, on the weekends. It's like you have more free time. As an adult, it just takes more intention. And it's really, you want to actually foster these adult friendships. And what's really cool, I mean, there's lots of ways you can start by joining different clubs or things, which Susan's going to talk about. But I also want to just say, being open to what's available. Like I said, you're opening the door when you kind of let go of something, you can open the door for something new. Mm. And when you talked about fun, what came to my mind? My ocean plunge ladies.
Oh,
it's so fun. And I started this. Tammy Salas, who was on that, she actually started, but then I took it over and I do it every week. And we literally laugh so hard and we scream and we laugh. And it's like play in the ocean, in the sun, in the sand. And but see, to make them be my BFFs, we've been doing this now for 3 years every Sunday. You kind of do the math and it's like, okay, I think we're finally there. So it's about a proximity too. Sometimes you think, I'm not hanging out with certain friends as much. It's like you make the time and the proximity, and then you just do the fun things. So what I'd love for you all to do is make a list of who are your friends? What could you do with them? And start reaching out, stepping outside of your comfort zone, inviting people for coffee, joining groups, clubs, and just letting go of that old, let go, let the old friendships go, or create new friendships, or reach out to old friends too and reconnect. All of this can be happening. Yeah.
And I get it. There's fear there. I know. I felt like when I first stopped drinking, I didn't know what I liked. I was like, well, I don't know, and sometimes people find out that they're more of an introvert than they thought they were also. So it's like honoring that, and it's honoring that maybe you don't know, and that's okay too. I just want to put that out there. Like, okay, so it's a big experiment. It's like, well, try this and see, like, go back to, I love to tell people, go back to your childhood. What did you like as a kid?
Yes.
And then, or imagine something in your mind. And then if it brings it's the smile test, they call it. And if it brings a little smile to your face, go, okay, maybe I want to take a drawing class. I've always loved drawing as a kid. Maybe you want to take an interior design class if you love putting colors together, or quilting. Like my mom quilts, and she has a whole quilting guild, and they're all so good about putting these colors together. I'm terrible at it, and I'm terrible at sewing.
And quilters get together and have little quilting circles. It's very connection. Yeah. I have clients that quilt.
Yes. And what was the other thing? Oh, mahjong is a new thing. And apparently, it's you need so much brain power for mahjong that you can't do it and be drinking, or, old card games, or volunteering. Like if you love cats, or you love dogs, or you love babies, volunteer to go down and hold all the NICU babies, or, I believe if you just take one step forward, and we call this the moving walkway in so many areas of our life. It's like you take one step forward, and then the moving walkway will move you forward. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be forever. You can say, I'm going to volunteer at this animal shelter. And then if I don't end up liking it, you can always stop. And try something else.
Take one class. Like, if you're even just sparking interest. I always wondered what pottery making's like. Take one pottery class, or like you said, go back to what did you do before you were drinking? It's so funny when I ask clients that question, and they're all of a sudden they're light. They go, oh my God, I used to play the piano every day. And I'm like, oh, and then when did you stop playing piano? Oh, about the time I started drinking heavily, okay. Maybe that's back when you were in your 20s or a long time ago, but you can remember those things that you used to love to do, or something you've always wanted to try. It can be both and, right? You can have some, like, I want to try to surf one day. So I've never done it, but there's things that could be on your bucket list, so to speak, or things that you used to love to do when you were a child. And stuff that's on your bucket list. I love that. Just to explore travel. We hear from a lot of different clients or guests that come on the podcast that they started traveling, and there's ways to travel alone. And when you can go in these different groups, there's sober retreats. Apparently there's like a sober cruise. There's lots of opportunities and people go alone, and then but again, like I've mentioned on other podcasts, the sober community is so wholehearted. Like you already have that in common. You already have a way of connecting. And when I've done that myself, the connection is just amazing, with new people. It's so fun. So even making mocktails, become a mixologist. You can
like that.
Always also, I do recommend to some of my clients that really, you can go to, say, a church community. You can also, like Susan mentioned, volunteer, but you can also go to AA. Even if that's not your thing, like we, Susan and I are This Naked Mind certified coaches, which is a little different methodology than AA, but AA is local. So if you do, really want to meet someone for coffee or have a hug, you can go to AA. And then I just say, because I don't really love at all the term, like I'm an alcoholic. So I say, hi, I'm Ruby. I'm so grateful to be alcohol free. And that's what I say. So if you don't like that word alcoholic, you can have a new little phrase for yourself.
I love that.
Yeah. And then I wanted to share that I created a Meetup. So Meetup is an app. And you can go on Meetup, you guys, and there's like Meetup groups. They play bingo, or they go hiking, or there's dog walking. There's knitting ones. I've seen all kinds. So I just decided to create one that's called Alcohol Free Fun Group.
Ooh.
And we do things like that, like hiking, and we've met for coffee, and it's really cool. I'm having a lot of fun with it. So you can start your own group or join others. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I wish I could do that. I want to join your group, but I'm all the way across the country. Boo.
Well, Izzy, we've had Izzy on,
Yes.
and she in San Francisco started the walks, the San Francisco
Yes.
walks. So you can totally start a group or just join them. If you're in the San Francisco area, join Izzy.
Join Izzy's.
Or if you're in Sonoma County, it's called Sonoma County Alcohol Free Fun Group on Meetup. So yeah, I'd love to see you there.
Well, I guess I have to start one in Connecticut then.
Yes, please.
I guess we're coming out of winter. It's starting to thaw here. So then if I wanted to do some sort of walks, but we could do some sort of coffee shop crawl or something, or mocktail crawl. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. I could see your
My wheels are turning.
Your wheels are turning. You're like, okay. So how about that? All of you listening, how can you create more community, more connection? Because connection is the opposite of addiction. And we are tribes, and we really do. Why is this important? Why are we even bringing this up? Because we need other people. Humans need humans, and connection and friendship. Adult friendship is so important. And like I was saying, it's harder. It's so easy when you're in school, when you're young. And for all those reasons I mentioned, it's just the proximity, the same schedule. So it's different now. As an adult, it's a little more intention, like make it a priority. If that's what you want, is more friendship, like reach out, whatever you want to do in terms of clubs or games or
acquire a networking group.
So
if you're in business, like I'm in this women's networking group, and they meet for lunch once a month, and then they have activities that you can go to. And I think people in their mind think, in order to socialize, in order to have these connections, it has to include alcohol. And that's our culture. And, it really pains me when I see, Pilates and Pinot,
Oh, I know.
But you don't need that. And in fact, that is a barrier to true connection, alcohol, even one glass, really. The shades come down. We talked about that, and you just don't see the real person. Yeah. And so putting it out there as an alcohol-free activity, and finding those things it's possible, and it's actually more beneficial for you than the thought that, it has to have alcohol in order to be fun or to be social.
Right.
That's just a myth. That's one of those myths that we bought into that's debunked. And but you know what? My heart still is there because I get it. And you get it, especially Ruby, when you feel lonely. It's sometimes hard to drag yourself out of that pit a little bit. But the first step is getting alcohol free, honestly.
Then you start to gain more confidence in yourself, and you're more open. And if we even just talk about vibing, when you're alcohol free, you're just usually a more open person. You're smiling more, so you're more approachable, and it just happens naturally. So maybe you can't imagine it right now, but again, the first big domino is getting alcohol out, and then you can start to look at joining all these. Life gets so fun, right, Susan? It gets so incredibly fun.
The thing the other night was so fun at this brewery. So fun. The music was great. The people were great.
Nothing to do with alcohol.
Nothing. Well, everybody else, but not me.
I mean, it's still so much fun without alcohol. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
So this is the favorite part. One of my favorite parts of our podcast is, so Susan, what are you doing lately to feel lit alcohol free?
Well, one thing that I do all the time, and I offer to all my clients is, and you gave it to me for Christmas, which is so lovely, is drinking Tulsi tea. And Tulsi tea is also called holy basil tea. And holy basil is an herb, and it's an adaptogen. And it actually can help with stress. And it has been studied. There's an actual study paper. It's called Tulsi, a herb for all seasons. It's been published that it actually has regular ingestion of Tulsi tea. They call it liquid yoga, or yoga in a teacup.
What?
That regular consumption of Tulsi tea may be compared with the regular practice of yoga, which can be considered adaptogenic through the nurturing and nourishing of the body, mind, and spirit, while fostering a sense of relaxation and well-being. And I can attest to that. Like, I get that sense of well-being from my little yoga snacks, which I've shared, but I also get a great sense of well-being by having a cup of Tulsi tea almost every night. It sort of replaced my old wine habit. And so I work with clients and I just offer that as a suggestion. Try some Tulsi tea. When you would normally sit down on the couch, your old ritual of sitting on the couch and having wine is maybe change to a chair and have your favorite book and have a warm, snuggly blanket and have your Tulsi tea. There is a lot of ritual around tea as well, as like high tea or having tea at 4 p.m. So maybe tea and a protein snack at 4 p.m., which will set yourself up for getting through the witching hour better, right? The protein plus the adaptogens, the stress relief, and the feeling of well-being that you get from the Tulsi tea.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool tea to have in your arsenal. You gave me some really fancy tea that I put in my little tea ball, it's loose leaf tea, which is really cool. But it actually has protective agents that protect against toxic effects of chemicals, free radicals. It's just a great herb to have in your arsenal. So.
All right. Well, I bought you the bag that I gave you for Christmas, and I bought one for myself. And so we had talked yesterday about this episode and what we were going to do for Feel It. And you said Tulsi tea. And I said, okay, I'm actually going to open the bag. So I did. And I am not kidding you. I had a wonderful afternoon. Normally I'd have an afternoon coffee. And I said, okay, I'm not going to have my afternoon coffee. I'm going to do this Tulsi tea and see what happens. And I felt so good in my stomach. I felt so good in my brain. So I think this is my new habit of I'm going to not have afternoon coffee and have Tulsi tea, because it just made everything. I don't know how to explain it, but all those things you just said really were there. It was calming and my stomach was calm. I don't know. It was good. I love it.
It's beautiful, beautiful. And it's not widely recognized in Western medicine, but here it has been published. It's been published and proven that it helps with resilience around stress and with a general feeling of well-being. Yeah. So, and
I felt that. So.
Oh, good. Yeah, me too. So why not, right? Yeah. So let's see. What is it? Oh, here. I'm going to read this from this paper. It says, considered a potent adaptogen, Tulsi has a unique combination of pharmacological actions that promote well-being and resilience. So why not? While the concept of an adaptogen or herb that helps with the adaptation to stress and the promotion of homeostasis. Ooh,
that is how I felt yesterday afternoon. So I love it. Thank you for because you're the one that introduced me to it, and then that's why I bought it for you for Christmas. And then now I'm gonna drink it. Yeah. So we learn from each other, with these Feel Its. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. There's so much. And then I always give this article to clients because I think there's a value to proving to a proof, to article, to expert proof that this does work. Right. And then just embracing it.
And embrace it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I know the topic of loneliness is a big one. And I'm so glad we were able to address it because it's very important and it's very common. But I hope you found some help. Please reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. And thank you so much for listening to our
podcast. Thank you.
We love our listeners.
We do.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to Feel It Alcohol-Free Podcast. Do you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show?
All you need to do is head over to Apple Podcasts and do 2 simple things. Leave a rating and review telling us what you think of the show, and in that review, ask us any questions you have about breaking free from wine or living an alcohol-free lifestyle. That's it.
Then tune in to hear your question answered live.
And remember, do something today that will help you feel lit.
Don't forget to get your free Feel Lit bingo card.
Link in the show notes.